Now, I would like to join also other delegates into thanking Canada and UK for sponsoring the event, for financially helping us to do this event. Of course, the Turkey for hosting it. And I'd like to also thank the ODIHR. I mean, you have done a great work here in also deploying your knowledge and bringing a lot of experts that we've heard online, which really help us steer this debate. I'd like to thank and congratulate the Ukrainian delegation, I must say, the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Artur, Irina, all of you, Pablo, for the level of the debate and seriously engaging in this debate. I remember when we were with the Bureau in Kiev, and we first mentioned the idea of elections, let alone organizing a seminar on elections. I could see in the room some reactions, some perplexities. Of course, it's very difficult to discuss elections in the situation of war. Many members have mentioned that. But I must say that the way you are approaching this, the level of your interventions is very heartwarming. And thank you also to the Central Election Commission of Ukraine for being present. And of course, you will be the driving force. And I will come to what is the difference of your role compared to other post-conflict countries where we have observed or helped to do elections. I'd like to thank Stephanie, Freya, Francesco, the election department for setting up this seminar. And the last word of thank is to President Pons for pushing us to do this. Under your leadership, President, we are trying to get into the main dossiers, not only by ticking off a box and just talking about it, but really doing in-depth conversations. We were together in the youth forum before. They're also there. They're having a long day of debates. That's why we were absent for a while. But I must say that 4.5 hours debate after so many deliberations, I'm still amazed that everybody is paying a lot of attention. I find it a little bit difficult to talk about my previous experience and talk about elections because most of the experts that were speaking before, some were my colleagues, Irene, some were my bosses, Peter Urban, many bosses around the table here. So I think you've heard already from the experts a lot of insights. But I'll take a few takeaways. One was said, like it's very difficult to think about elections when you are under the bombs. The Latins used to say, primum vivere, deinde philosophari. First, you have to live, then you can make philosophy. But here we're trying to look at the scenarios that will take place after this war is over. And I think I would want to bring here the experience of a similar scenario where we've done this in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, but with a fundamental difference. I think, first of all, and there are many political questions that Ukraine has to ask itself, what will be the scenario? What is the post-conflict scenario? First of all, who is bringing a post-conflict scenario? Is it a bilateral agreement between two big leaders? Is it an agreement? We always say nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. So is Ukraine part of this discussion? I'm going that far back because I think the political answers that we will give to how we end the conflict will also help us, let's say, plug in all the technical things that we've analyzed today. So in a post-conflict scenario where there is what is there? A peace settlement, an agreement, a treaty. I would imagine that in that political moment, there is also an agreement of how we conduct the post-war phase. And in the post-war phase, okay, there is at some point a democratic process which is carried through an election. I like what you said, that elections are not just a technical exercise, but it's also a test for the nation and its resilience after the conflict. So that is the first question. What is the post-election scenario? The difference with other post-conflict scenarios where the OSCE has been involved. I remember actually during the Minsk agreements when Hollande, Merkel were talking about post-election at that time, post-conflict. At that time, we didn't think that there would be 2022. But the idea was, okay, but the OSCE will take care of the elections, like, and in a way, like, as if OSCE would come and organize elections as it was done in Bosnia and in Kosovo. Obviously, this is not, like, in Bosnia and in Kosovo, there was the international community, which kind of brought the conflict to an end with the Dayton Agreement in Bosnia, with the military technical agreement of Kumanovo on the 10th of June in Kosovo. There was no the territory was very clear. Who was in charge was very clear. Now here, the questions that you will have to answer is, okay, we have elections. It's clear there is an administration. So the OSCE is not coming with 2,000, 3,000 election officers running. You have a functioning election commission. You have an administration. So you have the infrastructure. And as Arthur, you mentioned, you have had elections already in the past. John mentioned places where you have observed elections. I actually observed elections in Simferopol, in Sevastopol, in 2010, and Yalta. Unfortunately, we haven't observed after 2013 there. But so you have the infrastructure to carry out the elections. The question is, where will you have the elections? So, and what type of elections? Will we start with the national elections, parliamentary? We start with the presidential elections. Do you have municipal elections, local self-government elections? And so, first of all, where? I would imagine an EP settlement to be, I don't know. This is again, what is the post-conflict? Is the post-conflict in an ideal world that Ukraine regains its entire territorial integrity? So you have elections everywhere. That would be the ideal. We know that ideal, unfortunately, always contrasts with reality. Do you have an election in the territory that are currently controlled by Ukraine? And what happens to the territory that are now illegally under the control of Russia? Do you have elections there? Do you have elections for those municipalities, although you cannot carry them there? Irene will remember, and other Peter Urban, if he's still connected, we had elections in Bosnia Herzegovina where you would have an election in one municipality and where the people of those municipalities were no longer there. There was another ethnic group living there, and you would have the municipal council in exile in another place. So, but this was done by the international community because we said, well, we cannot ratify ethnic cleansing. So based on in Yugoslavia was based on the census of 1991, you will have elections and the voters list will be the one prior to the conflict. Which one is the voters list today? The one prior to 2022, the one prior to 2013. So I'm not giving you answers. I'm just saying, I'm bringing additional challenges here in what will be the political challenges that Ukraine and all of us will have. So all of the technical issues that we have underlined today, which are very good, and it's very good that we answer them. I think the key will be what's the political settlement, how the conflict ends, and in that moment, what will be the responsibility given also to the international community to do any activity besides advising, like the ODIHR does. By the way, thank you very much for asking the ODIHR for a legal opinion, and I think ODIHR has already worked very hard on that, and I think this is the way to do it, to work with consultants and experts in asking wherever we have capabilities to support the Ukrainian Central Election Commission and the Ukrainian authorities in improving their framework. Here, this is a session about international observation. I think the OSCE has observed all the election that have been carried out in Ukraine since its independence. I've been in, I think, at least 10 with them, with Francesco and others. We have vast experience, but of course, you've already touched upon this. Here will be where we observe. Can we observe in all the territory? Security of the observers, this will be very important. I will add, and this is something that maybe eludes this debate, it's also the posture that international observer partners will have in these elections. Normally, we have the ODIHR on the ground with long-term observers who provide, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, the most accurate, the most professional, and let's say the most neutral assessment of an election observation. Then there will be parliamentary delegations, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Council of Europe, European Parliament. We've seen a trend in the last years into also bringing a political component, political slash party component in observation. This is something that we will have to be very careful because, as you have seen today, Ukraine, notwithstanding the fact that they are under the war, they are a democracy. There is debate there. There is people that say, okay, well, on the national issues, we're all united. But when it comes to us, we have different of opinions. And these different of opinions also means different political families in Europe, different political affiliations. So the observers who will be there will have to be extremely, extremely neutral in this. I am not arguing that normally the observers are not neutral or even let alone saying that there is some bias, but sometimes you can sense in some parliamentary bodies a tendency to see if the incumbent is closer to you. You might have a different kind of judgment if the party closer to you is maybe in the opposition. So I would advise us as parliamentary assembly, where I think the problem is less, let's say, present, because our president always makes appointment not based on political affiliations, but made on experience and previous experience in those countries. But I would really advise us to strictly stick with the ODIHR work that will be done in the previous period as advisors to the Central Election Commission, but once they are there as observers, as long-term observers, and try to stick as much as possible with the ODIHR. I think with this I have made enough provocations, enough damage into this debate. So if there are any questions, otherwise I move my mouth. Thank you very much.